Welcome to iPad Pros, the show all about using your iPad to be productive and get work done. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show. This episode is sponsored by Glisten. Learn a language by listening. Learn more at www.glisten.ist.
But I'm running the Clipboard Manager paste on the iPad mini, and because of Universal Clipboard, I can copy and paste to my heart's content on the iPad, and there's a whole history of it building on my iPad mini, and all I have to do is reach over and tap the thing I need on the iPad mini, and it's now back in my clipboard on the iPad Pro, and it works.
Welcome back to another episode of iPad Pros. We're joined today by Wes Hilliard from Apple Insider. Wes began his iPad as a primary computer journey back in 2019 and spent 2 years being iPad only, and then 2 years later gave the Mac a try with the 14-inch M1 MacBook Pro and realized that was overkill, and is now back to the iPad as his primary computer. In this episode, we dive into the journey, the accessories he uses with the iPad, and the apps he uses to do his job at Apple Insider. We also discuss at length his experience of using the iPad for game streaming using Camo. Oh, Wes is also a big fan of the iPad mini, and we touch on how he uses that in combination with his iPad Pro. If you want to support this podcast, the best thing you can do is go out and download and try Glisten. Glisten is the Good Listen podcast app for language learners. It's all you need to immerse yourself in a language on the path to becoming fluent. I'll be sharing more about Glisten later on in this episode, but for now, download Glisten for iPad, iPhone, and Apple Watch. As a reminder, you can also support the podcast over at patreon.com/iPadPros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. By supporting the show at either place, you'll get early access to both iPad Pros and Vision Pros. The yearly rate on Apple Podcast is heavily discounted and a great option to get that early access all year long to both shows. My thanks to everyone that supports the show. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. With that, here's my discussion with Wes. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Wes.
Well, hello, Tim. I've been following you for a while. This is interesting. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah, I've heard your voice on the Apple Insider podcast and followed you on the Mastodon, and it's good to finally be able to chat with you today.
Well, it's weird people hear me. I mean, I talk on a podcast, but I always just thought I was the only listener, so there we go.
Right, yeah. It's that thing where, if podcasters walk down the street and they're talking, it's like people turn their head because they don't know what they look like, really,
Exactly, yeah.
So, for those who don't know who you are and don't listen to Apple Insider, they should be, can you share a bit on your background and what you do over there at Apple Insider?
All right, well, it depends on how in-depth we want to get here, but basically, I'm relatively new to the field. I was in the Navy for 10 years doing something completely different. I was in engineering, basically. I was an electrician in the nuclear department on a carrier, and then I ran my own electrical division on these small ships called LCUs. So I was doing all that for about 10 years, and then in 2019 I separated and got picked up by Apple Insider almost by accident. I just happened to be kind of poking around the idea of doing some technical writing, like about technology, Apple, and Apple Insider was a good fit. Fell into place, and I've been there for about 4 years and slowly picked up some responsibilities. So nowadays, I am basically I'm on staff as an assistant editor. That's like my technical title, but I also do SEO management and social media for the company. And I'm also, one of the co-hosts of the Apple Insider podcast. So I'm keeping a lot of balls in the air over there at Apple Insider. So it's kind of complicated, but I'm a little bit of everything at the company.
Okay. I'd imagine the SEO world has changed drastically in the past 4 years.
SEO is probably, it's hard to explain. It's not really my favorite part of the job, but it's like a necessary evil because of how Google works. So I understand how it works and what to do to make something rankable, but and it's kind of infused into the way I write, but I don't try to think about it too much. I just focus on the writing and on the story and everything. But yeah, it's definitely continues to evolve and continues to be slightly frustrating because we're kind of fighting with this black box, and Google continues to insist that it's all in the documentation, but we see so much evidence to the contrary, and it really has ruined the internet and ruined the way that coverage has to happen. And if anyone ever has a question about like why is Apple Insider writing this? Why is the headline this way? Why are these links highlighted this way in the text? What's going on here? The answer is almost always SEO. And please, if you ever feel the need, you can message me on Mastodon or even email us. Our emails are usually attached to the articles we write. Be happy to explain why Google has ruined the internet. But I hope that maybe there's a day in the future where we all revolt and overthrow this Google overlord. But right now, it's just kind of dictating how we present content.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, what role does the iPad play in your computing life these days?
Well, now it's come back full circle, and we can get into this, but I've basically replaced everything back to being iPad only. So right now I'm sitting in front of an iPad Pro on a stand. We are communicating over a MacBook, but that's because Apple still hasn't given us a good way to control audio intents on an iPad. We can't record audio while talking on a FaceTime call. So yes, this is being recorded on a Mac. I know it's sinful on the iPad Pro's podcast, but my general day-to-day setup is the iPad Pro connected through a Thunderbolt dock to a studio display, external keyboard, trackpad, and I have an iPad mini on the side for extra little tidbits, so we can get into all that. But where iPad started for me, and what's funny is so I actually got into the Apple ecosystem in about 2014. Before then I was hardcore Android all the way. I owned it was terrible for me financially because
every month there's a new flagship phone, right?
Yes, yeah, and I'm one of those tech people who needs to have the latest and greatest. So Samsung, Sony, whatever have you, like every few weeks there'd be something new, and I'm like, man, I really want to try that feature. And luckily I was in the military, so I could afford it, but it was really stupid of me to continue to live that way. And then finally, for some reason, something clicked, and I landed on Apple. And it wasn't until later, when the iPad Pro began surfacing, and Apple seemingly was more interested in making the iPad into what you'd call a professional computer replacement, that I started dabbling. And of course, as a lot of us were, I was inspired by Federico Viticci over at Mac Stories and his work on iPad. And it kind of gave me the idea that I don't need to buy two computers anymore. I don't need to buy an iPad Pro and a MacBook or an iMac. I could just do it all in one machine, and kind of just went from there. So when I actually joined Apple Insider in 2019, I was iPad only. And if if your readers recall, or listeners, if your listeners recall, in 2019, the iPad did not have official cursor support. And
I love how you say official cursor support, because it's
so it was
touch, right?
Officially unofficial. So yes, it was assistive touch. We had the giant red or blue cursor dot that, it was,
and you could use
the job.
The Citrix X1 mouse, right?
I just bought a random mouse and it worked.
It worked. Okay.
Yeah, and then I programmed shortcuts to the side buttons and stuff. So I was forcing this device to work for me, and it did its job. Luckily, early days, my job's much more complex now, but early days it was mostly just technical writing, browser, text block, keyboard, and that's and every now and then I would have to go manipulate the text, and the assistive touch was enough. But even then, though, thinking back, like I was going through photos of my desk setups. In January, I implemented my ultrafine display into my setup, and it reminded me, wow, we haven't always had full screen external display support. That's recent, but it feels like it's always been there, just because for some reason in my head, it's been there long enough now that I don't forget I've forgotten the before times, the dark times of mirror displays. And but yes, I actually worked for Apple Insider for my first 2 years only on an iPad, and it was interesting, but Apple actually made it much easier very quickly for me. So that was March 2020 when we got those updates and the new Magic Keyboard and trackpad support, and everything really kind of fell into place, and it kind of again clicked and said, you just got this job and you've been doing this kind of in a hacky way, but now Apple's giving you the official way. And that really set it into stone as I'm working from this computer.
Yeah. No, it's kind of amazing, the slow progression that we now look back. It's like, oh, we did it that way. Like I remember
we used to not have file system support, like not proper anyway. Like just thinking back to even 2019, how I organized my files and photos and text documents was just different because the Files app was not great.
It was just app based, and you could not hook up external hard drives, stuff like that, which is now super great that you can do. Yeah, in the early days, I used that Citrix X1 mouse with Jump Desktop, and you could use a mouse if you're remoting into like a Mac or something, and it was a special mouse built for that app kind of thing.
Oh, that's funny. I remember experimenting a lot with different applications to try, and one of the things that inspired me to go all in on Apple was because I think 2014 might be important to some people who've been around for a while, because that's when Apple really leaned into something called what's the word for sharing everything across devices? It's it's how you see the app icons in your dock.
Oh yeah, the
this is how old this technology is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You can turn it off. I've done this before because some people in
Right.
the family don't like it.
But yes, it's gosh, it'll come to me in 5 minutes. But it basically the idea that all the computers are talking to each other. And if you're part of Apple's ecosystem, continuity is
That's
it. There we
right.
go. So Apple introduced the concept of continuity in 2014.
Like right now, my iPhone's saying, "Do you want to move this FaceTime call to your iPhone?" It's like, no.
Yeah, just take a walk around your living room, maybe. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's interesting how it's evolved, but just to get to the iPad point, continuity is what led us to making the iPad better because of universal control now is part of that continuity system, right?
And copying and pasting between iPad, iPhone, and Mac even is the thing.
So as part of my use case and for my iPads, why there's an iPad mini always on while I'm working is it's running Paste. And interestingly, I can, that's one thing I needed to emulate from the Mac that I wish Apple would implement is a clipboard management system. But I'm running the clipboard manager Paste on the iPad mini, and because of universal clipboard, I can copy and paste to my heart's content on the iPad, and there's a whole history of it building on my iPad mini, and all I have to do is reach over and tap the thing I need on the iPad mini, and it's now back in my clipboard on the iPad Pro, and it works.
So the mini is just there kind of running this app kind of as a accessory computer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to interact with the mini at all. It's just ambiently capturing your clipboard.
Yes, and so there's two windows open on the iPad mini. The other one is Slack, and anyone who works for a company with Slack knows that Slack is very temperamental. And if you leave the window, the green dot turns off, and now you're no longer at work. So so I keep Slack running, and then I keep Paste running at all times on the iPad mini. And that, sadly, that's just the place that iPad mini has fallen. And we'll get into it later, but I have plans for a future that'll free up the iPad mini by using my spare Mac as kind of a server computer to run all of these silly things in the background, so I don't have to have my iPad mini wasting its resources on that.
Sure. Yeah. And your iPad Pro, it's the M1 or M2 or 2021?
So M1, so 2020. So
2021, I think.
Oh, 21. That's right.
Yeah.
Because 20 is when the M1 actually came out.
Yeah. 2020, we had the Magic Keyboard with the camera enhancements to the iPad Pro.
Right. So I've actually owned every iPad Pro since the iPad Pro came out. And I remember the first time I opened the box thinking, is this a joke? Like, it's so large, especially coming from like a 10.5 inch iPad. You open the box and it's like almost like one of those novelty gag things that's like a giant candy bar. And you're looking at it like, wow, is this really an iPad? And then they've refined it to the flat sides. But I've owned every one up to the M1, and the M2 just did not entice me. I am an Apple Pencil user, but I'm not that much of a user. So Hover was all they really added that was new for the consumer side, and M1 didn't feel slow, and it still doesn't feel slow. So especially for my workflows. So yeah, I'm still on the M1 iPad Pro, 12.9 inch. 1 terabyte of storage, cellular data.
Yes. Yeah, the 1 terabyte also gets you the more RAM, so that's a nice thing to do.
The RAM that I don't think any professional app actually takes advantage of. Some games do, but I don't know of anyone that actually... The application system, the layer below the application, does kick that in if it needs to, so it can manage more tabs in Safari and stuff like that. But as far as like an app loading up that much RAM, there's probably very few, if any, that actually use that.
LumaFusion has stopped crashing for me when I leave it in the background, and I wonder if it's part of the RAM story with that iPad or not.
Yeah, I definitely think it's better for stuff like Stage Manager, where you're going to have more things running at once. But even then, Stage Manager is tricky because it doesn't really let anything run in the background unless it specifically has permission to. It's an oddity. That's the black box. That's the iPad, where all of us who are actually iPad Pro users who maybe go all in on this system know that as much fun as it is to use, there are some odd limitations and odd workarounds that you have to get through.
It is interesting, the Stage Manager situation, where I've got 16 gigs of RAM. Can I have 8 windows instead of my 4 that the 8 gigabyte people get? But no.
Right. I mean, and so the funny thing with me is I often feel a little bit of what you would call what's the word, imposter syndrome, because like I know that I'm using my iPad in a professional way, but I don't, I'm not a coder. I'm not building apps. I'm not building, complex graphical designs and stuff like that. But I'm still utilizing it in a way that consumers wouldn't. So
right.
It's funny to walk that line, knowing.
Do you is editing the Apple Insider podcast your role, or is that what Steven does?
Steven handled it. Now I believe William's going to be running some of that. We're discussing getting me trained up in editing, because that's just something I've never had to handle. Remember, this industry is new to me.
Yeah, Ferrite's a fun thing to do with the iPad, I will say. Like
I do like, that's the one reason why I wouldn't mind taking over some editing responsibilities. I already have too many things on my plate, but I might as well add one more. Like I've definitely considered it. Like I've heard Ferrite's just really intuitive, and it still work. Like it's still, you're still editing a podcast.
Yeah,
but
they added the 2x playback speed during editing, which is just a godsend for editors, because you can edit twice as quickly, pretty much.
For sure. And it's definitely something I need to get into, if only to alleviate some responsibility from William. But no, I don't edit the podcast, and I'm not running video over here. We have our own video person, Andrew. If anyone goes to Apple Insider YouTube, he's actually kind of a one-man machine over there.
He's the guy that is also on HomeKit Insider?
He's co-host on HomeKit Insider, and Steven also handled editing that podcast. So again, we'll see how we're going to handle that going forward. But yes, that pretty much all fell to Steven, and he was obsessed with the iPad Mini and Ferrite on there, and editing from his back porch or whatever. So definitely a good iPad use case editing podcast
for sure. And you guys use Fireside, which is
not Fireside, Riverside.
Riverside, sorry. What is Fireside?
River,
yeah, Riverside. Well, you're at the but Riverside, which means you can do all this from the iPad. You don't need the Mac like we're doing today with FaceTime to record.
Yeah. So, for anyone curious, my current iPad setup. So I've written it down so I can get it all in one go. It's pretty fun. So I have the iPad 12.9-inch iPad Pro hooked up to what you'd call a QQ magnetic arm. And you can look it up. There's a review on Apple Insider. But it hovers the iPad above the desk, and it's one of those arms that you can move it freely, and the iPad attaches via its back magnets. There's no grips or anything, so that's really nice. And then it's Thunderbolt connected through a StarDock Thunderbolt 4 dock with a bunch of ports and external Thunderbolt connections through that to the studio display. And then I have the Keychron Q3 Pro SE keyboard, Magic trackpad, because it's the only trackpad in existence that's worth getting. And then something else we'll get into, I have the Asus, I believe, TUF 4K 30 streaming box connected through the Thunderbolt dock. And then we also discussed the iPad Mini, and yeah, it's a pretty nice little desk setup. I've been working on this for years. The evolution of it has been quite interesting. If anyone follows me on social media, going from desk to desk, device to device, but I'm pretty happy with where I've landed, and this is probably where it's going to stay for a while.
What's the keyboard you're using?
Keychron.
Is that a multiple device
So
keyboard?
I hardwire everything. But technically, yeah. If I switch it over to Bluetooth, there's a command where I can switch between 3 radios to switch between devices if I wanted to. But
yeah, I was wondering if the iPad Mini, if there would be utility in doing the multi-device thing with that. With the Mini.
so that's what I was going to get into.
And even your iPhone potentially.
Potentially, those devices are pretty static. The iPhone, actually, I have a I believe it's the Nomad charging base that lets it do standby mode, and so the iPhone actually is in front of the keyboard in standby mode, and I usually have the Now Playing Music on that, so I can have quick controls for that, because my HomePods, I have 2 HomePods in the office that are usually playing something, and then the iPad Mini and iPhone, there's just no keyboard tasks for those. Slack, funny enough, Slack's running on the iPad Mini, but if I need to message someone, I open it on the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of interesting. Yeah. The iPhone, it's kind of nice with the Bluetooth keyboard. Like, it's a nice little tiny, just one app screen that's like, it's nice to just like knock out some text and.
I've said it before, but the perfect computing device, if this futuristic thing that Apple's never going to do, would be an iPad Mini that was just everything. Just give me an iPhone camera, give me the M2 or M3 processor, give me the 120 hertz ProMotion display, Thunderbolt connection, 8-inch screen, and then just replace everything. I don't need an iPhone. I don't need an iPad Pro. Plug it into an external display, you know what I mean? Like, and then AirPods to do phone calls, you know. So just one guy to rule them all. That'll never happen, but that's definitely.
What you need is the Apple Watch to become your main phone, and then the iPad is just your accessory to that. You know.
Yes, or the Humane AI pen could just be my phone.
Right. Yeah.
Of course. No, but it's definitely an interesting setup. So like my iPad Mini is actually kind of my main device most of the day. It goes with me. I have I usually have it in a pocket or something nearby just to use as I'm moving around the house. The iPad Pro really has evolved into just being a work machine, and it's mostly used in the office, or if I'm doing work somewhere else in the house, it comes with me on the Magic Keyboard. But it really has just kind of turned into that kind of thing. And every now and then it kind of comes back to being consumerish. Like I'll check out a video game like from Apple Arcade on the big screen, or run it on the studio display, or I'll use Discord. But I've been trying to find ways to bring it back more into my personal use case, because it used to be my personal computer. I just don't compute that way anymore because I spend all my time working on it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, and the Mini seems so much more fun to just walk around and hold and use as a tablet.
It's the best iPad as a tablet, for sure. Like, if you're looking for like Steve Jobs' vision of sitting on the couch reading the newspaper, or that kind of thing, this is that iPad, and Apple really hit it out of the park with that.
Are you more likely to update that iPad when the Mini gets its next update versus the M3 iPad Pro?
Oh, I'm doing both. So I skipped, I think we got off track, but I skipped the M2 generation for a reason. It just didn't feel like there was enough there. But M3 actually checks a lot of boxes that I want to have in my ecosystem.
Okay.
But for sure, iPad Mini, yes. Because it's getting actually older. It definitely needs an update, and I'm very curious as to how they're going to update it this cycle. But yes, the iPad Mini 7 is definitely on my purchase list.
So your computering tasks for Apple Insider, SEO, writing, what's the hit list of things you currently do with your iPad for work?
So generally speaking, so I'm on the studio display with the iPad Pro right off to the right, hovering next to it. So I'm usually running 3-4 apps at the same time. I'm not a heavy windowing user, so Stage Manager's been great, but I don't have 15 things open at once. Every now and then I might have 3 windows on the same screen, but that's mostly rare.
And is the iPad screen utilized in some way?
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. So my job kind of all blends together, so all those titles become kind of just one big job. Because my daily job is, I work the evening shift. So I actually go into work around 3 p.m. till about 11 or so. And I'm on my own. So I'm in charge of finding the news and covering it. But I'm also in charge of maintaining social media. So on my iPad screen, I'll usually have 4 apps open, actually using all 4 apps, which is Mastodon, Twitter. Yes, I know. But we're on there. I have NetNewsWire for RSS and Apple News open. That was a recent addition because there's a few companies that publish through Apple News pretty quickly, and if you follow the Apple channel, it actually updates almost faster sometimes than social media can. But those are my 4 apps open, and then I have a Threads Instagram page available on another stage. But that's my basically amalgamation of here's social media, here's your news RSS, but all of that feeds into I'm constantly keeping my eyes open for what's new, what's news for coverage for the night, but also, so on the main screen, I'm running stuff like Pixelmator or Photomator for editing images. Then I have Affinity Design for creating images. So it really just depends on which pipeline I need for generating an image. I use I do this every time. Pixo. It's like sewing. So for generating framed iPhone images and then importing it to Designer, so that I have a whole image pipeline together. I actually write in drafts. Everything I do is in drafts. There's probably tens of thousands of documents inside drafts I'll never look at again, but I never delete anything. I just create a new draft, write what I'm going to write, and then I take it to where I need it to go. And because the number one rule
That includes social media posting from draft?
It depends on how complex it is, because sometimes you need the same post in different places.
Yes.
And we have one of those posting tools.
And sometimes you want to be drafting in the client so you know how many characters you have to play with.
Right. Well, drafts tells you that too. And actually, I use drafts a lot for counting characters because it's important for headline creation and stuff like that. But drafts is pretty much my default go-to. But I actually also employ IA Writer because IA Writer, you can create your own internal file system, and it's you can make it reliant on the Files app as well. So you're generating through the app a file structure. And what I've done, I'll get to that in a second because that's actually kind of interesting. But so drafts is always open next to Safari. Those two windows just coincide. And then I have stuff like files and mail and stuff like that on the main screen. So my job generally is the news, but when there's no news to do, I have other things, right? So I'm writing reviews for the website, and that's processing images. I'm taking photos with my, DSLR, sometimes my iPhone. You'll be surprised actually how many reviews I just photographed with my iPhone. I wonder if anyone can usually tell the difference. Let's see. So I use external tools like Timery tracks my time. Grammarly's great because yes, even though on iPad it can't track everything I'm writing, I can take the text from drafts, paste it into Grammarly, get my grammar, all that stuff checked, and then take that text to the publisher in Safari and get it into our Apple Insider's publishing system, get everything up to date, publish. So that's basically my news workflow.
Yeah. So you're not using their weird keyboard.
Their weird keyboard thing. Oh, Grammarly. So Grammarly, yeah, it's weird. So I do not use alternative keyboards, and it doesn't work with hardware keyboards, funny enough. So it wouldn't even activate while it's connected through the dock. But they do have a Safari extension that I have turned on for our publishing website, and that's the only place it's turned on for. But it's hit and miss. Honestly, using the app is the best way to go, and it works fine because I don't even actually create new documents in Grammarly. I just have one document that I overwrite every time. But that workflow is pretty seamless. I actually can get from I see a news item to publication within 15 to 20 minutes. And that's like 300-400 words, depending on what it is, because my workflow's gotten pretty efficient. I actually use shortcuts with my drafts. So Slack has the Shortcuts app open next to it on the iPad. So I switch to that window and then have drafts open on the Stage Manager, on the Studio Display. And if I need to link something, like I have separate shortcuts for generating Amazon affiliate links, or just generated standard links like to our website by highlighting the text and hitting a button in Drafts that runs a shortcut on the iPad. So so that's all pretty streamlined, and Drafts has a way to do this internally. So it's taken some time, but a lot of my text manipulation can happen through shortcuts pretty easily. And getting to the next point I wanted to say, I know I'm rambling, but hey, I'm on a podcast.
That's your job right now.
Right. So my other job, so when I'm not doing news, which can sometimes be an entire shift, sometimes just be 15 minutes, I have other projects, and this is where the SEO side comes in. And if anyone's ever curious, I don't know, guys, go navigate Apple Insider. If you're ever in an article and you see the word, I don't know, iPhone 15, MacBook Pro, like if you see a device name highlighted, you click it and it takes you to what we refer to as kind of our internal wiki. I run it. It's not a Wikipedia. I know everyone can edit wiki, whatever, but I run this thing. We call it our inside pages. It's actually in the URL /inside. So if you ever find yourself on a /inside / like iPhone 15 device name, insert here. I'm the manager for that. And we have like something like, I don't know, it's nearly 200 pages at this point that I have to go through and keep up to date with all the new information. Yeah, it gets a little overwhelming, but I have a whole system for that too on the iPad using reminders. But yeah, I encourage everyone to go poke around our inside pages sometime. They're just fun little informational things. Here's usually it's the rumor cycle. Like here's because I'm also, if you look at my title,
like, should I buy this Mac Mini right now?
Kind of. We actually don't do that. I know. Like Mac Rumors has like a green, red check mark kind of system. Mine's mostly informational. This is what this device is. These are the specs for it. This is what Apple calls it. Like, it's really just very much informational. This is when it came out. This is when it was updated. These are the rumors for the next device. Anyway, long story short, think of it like a wiki. And so I run this. And that's where IA Writer comes in. So I have a structured file system in IA Writer for all the inside pages, where I keep canonical versions of the inside pages. I take the text from Drafts, paste it in, and then do my SEO work for calculating density and all that nonsense. All there, pCalc's open next to IA Writer all the time for doing those calculations. And then anytime I need to, and it's fully searchable, I can find certain text. Like, it's a great...
I love as a writer that, pCalc is like a tool in your tool set, like calculations as a...
Yeah,
like
so
author.
that's half of SEO's calculations, which is really weird. You have to know how many times a word appears in a piece. But yes, so like that's kind of my writing setup, and again, I've been refining this for years. There's always room for improvement, but sorry if this is all really boring to the listeners, but I just like when it comes to writing, there's a lot of tools involved. I think a lot of people think that that we just open Publisher and Safari and we just work there all day. And
I would not advise it, especially on iPad Safari.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, if you're writing text in a browser, more than 10 words, probably don't, because all it takes is one like browser crash or refresh and all that text is gone. So yeah. nobody who knows what they're doing works from inside a browser window for sure.
What have been some of the biggest stories that have broken during your shift? Like, I know OpenAI was going nuts during the evening hours recently.
That's a good question. I don't actually, the OpenAI stuff was so convoluted that I kind of just let day shift handle it, because so much would happen on the shift that it would be lost on the readers. It didn't matter.
It's like, here's the 20th update to the article here. Yeah.
I get to have some fun. Like I wrote a story titled "You're Still Gonna Get Bullied for Being a Green Bubble When RCS Arrives."
Oh yeah.
So like that news arrived, and 9 to 5 actually got a hold of Apple, and we covered that information that RCS will still be a green bubble text. Apple's not changing that when that comes along. Big news that's broken. I mean, I don't know. My brain doesn't categorize it that way. I'm just kind of doing the job. So I don't have any distinct memories of anything.
And I'd imagine during Apple's
crazy.
October event that was at night, the whole team.
That was fun.
The whole team probably helped.
Everyone, yeah. If it's an event, it's all hands, even if it's something weird like that, which is probably never going to happen again. But yeah, we're all usually there, churning away. And even the 1 p.m. events, like we might all be here until like 6-7 o'clock. Or earnings call is usually kind of a funny one because that's at 4 to 5 p.m. And then if there's a bunch of news there, we're all working until 8-9 o'clock. But
I missed the Steve Jobs days of the earnings calls. They were much more entertaining. So
yeah. I don't really know why we cover them other than there's general interest, but it's like everyone on Earth covers them, so it's not like we're going to have anything new to add. But yeah, it's just one of those things that we want to be part of the conversation, so we do. Just in case something crazy happens, and every now and then we get a little tidbit that's actually newsworthy from the earnings call, so it makes it worth it.
And so during the first 2 years of using the iPad, you started without trackpad support, and then 2020 we got that, the Magic Keyboard, and that was a great moment. And then Apple Silicon started to roll out, and along for the ride meant these Macs started to get the fancy iPad chips and some redesigns, which made them very appealing. So. Tell me a bit about this move in 2021 to see what the Macs were up to at that point.
Okay, so I'd used Mac before, so I wasn't totally alien to the system. But when I was using a Mac previously, I felt like, what am I using this thing for? I'm not a professional. I'm browsing the internet like anyone else. I'm using Reddit. I'm using Twitter. Why do I have an entire Mac sitting here? So that was part of my reason for just kind of falling into iPad in the first place.
It was
because
overkill,
I just did.
You thought.
Yeah, I just felt like it was a lot for nothing. It felt the classic. This is going to be controversial, and even on the iPads Pro podcast, I'm sure someone's going to let me know. But I just felt like the desktop paradigm, Apple's Mac, MacBook, Mac OS, was dated. It's ancient. It feels like I go back in time every time I use it. Like I'm back in Windows 2000 days of moving a cursor and clicking an icon, and just wow, Bob, I'm on the internet. Like it's just I don't know. It felt very dated, and it felt very utilitarian. So it and then the iPad felt fun, whimsical, new, and just the way the operating system works, the way the apps are designed, it all just felt different in a way that's hard to kind of explain. But then Apple Silicon came about, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. But what really clicked was two things happening almost within a month of each other. Universal Control getting announced and kind of saying, hey, that iPad you have sitting there, if you have a Mac, it gets superpowers. But on top of that, you get the new redesigned 14-inch MacBook Pro, revitalizing the line from the sad 15-inch days. And 16-inch did come around in 2019, but we kind of ignore that one. But like this was the revitalized computer, new curved edge design, just everything about it. It checked a dozen boxes at once, and Mac OS was getting all of these new features, and Apple Silicon was amazing. It was just kind of a big euphoric rise for the Mac, and everyone remembers that. And I just kind of got caught up in the storm, and I was like, you know what? Let's try it. I want to see what working with Universal Control is like. And I ordered a 14-inch MacBook Pro. I even wrote a whole story on Apple Insider about my decision-making process and moving back to the Mac. And that was in 21. So I was iPad only at Apple Insider for 2 years. And by the end of that 2 years, my job had actually grown into what it is now. So it was already very complex, but I was still managing it from an iPad. So I always had to laugh when I hear people say iPad's not a real computer, you can't do real work from it. And I'm just over here like, all right, what do you classify as work? And usually those people say, coding or web development or networking. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to use an iPad for that. Go buy a Mac. But that doesn't make the iPad any less because of that. But anyway, so the MacBook was interesting because it was all the new hotness. I came in, I got like a setup subscription, but I kind of started using it like an iPad. Funny enough, I kind of just carried my workflows back from the iPad to the MacBook, set it up on the studio display, and again, even then, still no external display support for iPad. So I was like, wow, my studio display has a full screen now.
Right.
And I set up the iPads next to it, and now I could move my cursor from, MacBook to studio display to iPad Pro to iPad mini seamlessly. Yes, there were glitches, but it's mostly refined at this point, and it all worked. My workflow didn't actually change that much. Still wrote in drafts, still utilized at the Pixelmator Pro for my photo pipeline, which actually could be everything. The way Pixelmator Pro works, I didn't need Affinity, I didn't need any other app. I was able to do everything in there, and I am begging that company, please bring that to iPad, and I will never ask for anything ever again. But yes, I utilized the MacBook Pro for about 2 years, funny enough. So 2 years on iPad, 2 years on MacBook Pro, using a very similar workflow. What's different though was basically universal control, clipboard management, stuff like I could have menu bar apps that do certain things. I could run desktop Chrome, which was necessary for our affiliate system. There's a lot of links that you generate from an extension tool inside Chrome. And actually, that's one of only 2 reasons why I still need a Mac somewhere in my house while I'm at work. Yeah, so like that wasn't really an issue when I first got here, but sometimes I do help generate some of the text for these like sponsored posts or yada yada, or like a review will have a link that goes through a certain website, and again, you just need that Chrome extension that isn't available anywhere else. So yes, I would need to have a Mac available, or I would have to go knock on one of our other employees' doors every time I needed a link. Said, hey, can you make this into an affiliate process link or whatever? And
That's kind of wild. There's no like website you can go to generate that.
I've had it rolling around in the back of my head. I really want to create like a stupid 300 layer shortcut that just detects what the website is and generates the proper link and gives you the option to add the necessary parameters with text input and outputs a properly affiliated link. But that would take a long time to figure out.
Oh, I see. Because you're trying to do multiple. It's not just Amazon. It's like we have 1,000.
No.
Yeah, gotcha.
Amazon, I have a shortcut for because
right.
So I have it strips the unnecessary parts and then adds back it's like a 4-character thing or whatever.
Yeah, but you guys do affiliates.
And now you have
like
your link.
Target.com and like other just
sure, like
sites.
B&H Photo, like is one, or like if we want to sell something from Nomad. And yeah, I know people are rolling their eyes like, affiliates, whatever. But guys,
that's how you pay the bills. I get it.
You got to make money, And so if you're ever out there trying to shop for something, go to your favorite website and click on a link to that thing, because you're helping people out doing that. Honestly, you're not losing any money doing that. Just saying.
No, just a company like Amazon's losing a little bit of money.
Yeah, you're taking a little off the top, and there you go, anti-capitalism. There you go.
Exactly.
But yeah, so there's a lot of these websites like Nomads, Atechi, what have you, that you can't just tag the end of the URL with a /AI code 3 or whatever and it works. That's just not how it works. You have to go through these like weird linking systems. So if you ever see a redirect when you click on a link, that's usually what it is. It's taking you through an affiliate portal. Just some inside baseball there, guys. But and it's safe, don't worry about it. But don't worry, Apple Insider is not trying to do anything weird. We just want money. But yeah, so that is just unavailable. It doesn't exist, and it would actually be really complex to try and generate. The thing that would probably save me, which will never happen, is if they take their extension and make it Safari compatible, which might make me able to add it to the iPad. But again, they're not interested in that. They don't care. They're just going to keep making their Chrome extension. But yeah, that's one of 2 things. But
what's the other thing?
Podcasting.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I need to have that around to properly record audio while talking to someone. Funny enough, I did podcast from an iPad only back in the early days when I joined the Apple Insider podcast. And you know how we did it? I would take the call through Skype on my iPad mini, and over an AirPod in my left ear, and then have my microphone hooked up to the iPad Pro with, gosh, what is that recording software called?
Is it Ferrite?
It might have been Ferrite. You're right. Yeah. That's same thing we were discussing for editing, but you can record into it. So I would record into Ferrite with the AirPods Pro on my right ear so I could hear myself talking, left ear to them. So they got garbage audio from an AirPod over an iPhone Skype call. And we would just have to pray that the iPad recorded properly everything. And then I would give them the origin file and they would replace my voice.
Yeah, it's similar to how I do it, except I'm using a Zoom H6 audio recorder that gets my good mic, and then rather than AirPods, I'm just feeding your audio into the Zoom H6 to record that, and
Nice.
I can hear you from that as well. But
but even then, you're getting some compression because we're over the internet. So I will be
Right.
giving you my local file.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's
But
what a
you are
lot of
hearing me from
podcasters
the
do.
iPad microphone, because there's no really good way to do that otherwise.
Well, yeah. Well, a microphone connected to the iPad, so I was still using a professional microphone through the iPad Pro back in the day, and that all worked fine. And we never lost a recording. Every now and then something glitched, and I would have to split a recording in two, but I never had anything disappear. Thankfully, we never had to re-record audio, unless I just forgot to record it. But which will always be a thing. But yeah, so. What got me interested in a Mac and why I shifted was, like that shift to Apple Silicon and Universal Control, and it worked. 2 years of doing that worked fine, but the creep started setting in of I'm not using the iPad to its full potential. It's become it would be there next to the Mac, and I would use apps on it. I would still that it's still my social media control center because none of that was really on the Mac anyway. Like there was still a lot to it, but I wasn't doing my full job from it. And I was really starting to feel the Mac again. I was like, okay, all this polish on top of Mac OS is great. Universal Control is great, but it's still Mac OS. I'm still feeling like I'm being transported back in time. There's all these weird things, quirks. It feels like every app is kind of its own island. They're not even aware of each other the way they are on like iPad OS or iPhone. It just started feeling old again. And Apple kind of just said, here you go. And, Stage Manager and stuff on Mac OS is fine, but just something about it just started to turn me off again from it. And I just really started getting curious. Do I want to use the iPad again? And funny enough, while this was happening, this is the era when, I'm sure all of us iPad obsessed people listening to the podcast know that this is about the time that everyone else got disillusioned from the iPad and kind of quit the iPad and did their like sad boy posts on the internet of I need to use the iPad the way it was meant to be used. John
Right.
Voorhees,
Was Stage
Federico Vitici.
Manager a thing at this point?
So this is actually Stage Manager was a thing. I used a Mac. Apple announced Stage Manager, external display support, all of that, and that was a very busy summer. But I just stuck with the Mac because it was still kind of messy, and
Yeah, it was pretty rough. That's
yeah, and there was a vision there, but it wasn't complete. But iPadOS 17 is where the switch happened. So I actually have only just recently switched back to being iPad only in August. But and I mostly waited until the betas got stable and was sure that I could make it work. But yes, I'm pretty much back full iPad because of iPadOS 17, the stability of Stage Manager. External monitor support's perfect. Thunderbolt support's good to go. Everything's where it needs to be.
Isn't it great? I mean, it's wild how good this is right now.
Yeah, like we're finally 90% of the way there. I'm missing so little. It's frustrating at this point what doesn't work, and I really hope like as everyone keeps wailing about podcasting, we might actually see something in iPadOS 18.
I hope so, yeah. Because
like
the initial external monitor support, you had the studio display, but it couldn't see that camera that was on that display until this year.
Exactly.
This episode of EpiPros is sponsored by Glisten. Glisten is a different kind of podcast app that helps immerse you in a language you are learning. Glisten stands for Good Listen. It is the only podcast player app designed specifically for language learners. Listen to compelling foreign language podcasts on your way to language fluency. Glisten helps you learn by utilizing repetitive listening workouts, which are like a trip to the gym for your ears. Here are the workouts Glisten includes so far to help you make the most of the audio you're listening to. First up is Straight Up, which plays your audio at a normal speed with no repeats or pauses. Then there's the Easy Does It, which plays your audio slowly without repeats or pauses. Next is Breathing Room, which plays your audio at a normal speed without repeats but includes short pauses. Next up is the Feng Shui, which plays your audio at a normal speed without repeats but includes long pauses. Then there's the Do-Over, which repeats each sentence once. Then there's the 3 times a charm, which repeats each sentence twice. Next up is Ramping Up, which plays each sentence 4 times, starting slowly and speeding up each time. Then there's the Didn't Catch That. It plays your audio 3 times, slowly in the middle. And finally, for the listening workouts, there's the Kitchen Sink. This repeats often, with pauses, and is recommended for use with the most difficult of pieces. And finally, there are 3 speaking workouts designed to help you speak while you're listening. First up is the Read My Lips. This repeats each sentence twice, then gives time to repeat it yourself. Second is the Slow Shadowing. This plays your audio slowly twice, with the goal of you trying to speak with the audio, shadowing, on the 3rd time. Finally, there's the Shadowing workout, which plays slowly 3 times and normally 3 times. Try to speak with the audio, shadowing, as much as possible. These workouts are accomplished using AI to determine where sentences start and end. The key to stepping beyond introductory language apps is to start listening to native speakers. Glisten immerses you in a foreign language, taking your listening comprehension to the next level. With Glisten, you can learn English, Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Dutch, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, with more languages coming soon. I'll have more to share about Glisten in the next episode, but for now, head on over to the App Store and download Glisten for iPhone, Apple Watch, and the iPad. It's free to download and get started with, and if you want even more from this app, give Glisten Pro a try to unlock the full feature set. My thanks again to Glisten for sponsoring this episode of iPad Pros.
So there's 45 minutes on on my workflows and why, but I understand there was another reason you wanted to be on the show.
Yeah, so I saw you on Mastodon starting to share a bit about game streaming from the iPad.
So iPadOS 17 did something else interesting, which got me interested in trying the iPad again. Game streaming, well, not even game streaming. It was such an odd announcement that even Apple should have known what it could be used for. But they're just like, you can attach external webcams. I'm like, okay, whatever. Moving on. Next
who
slide.
uses external webcams? That's weird. Let's go buy an iSight camera.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, cool. I can connect it to my studio display, and now I get the webcam from the studio display. That's all fine and dandy, but who cares? But because I wasn't a heavy Mac user or legacy user, it didn't occur to me that this is how people record external video footage. UVC support is what it's called. And when people started talking about it, I was like, oh, neat. And Apple Insider was actually one of the first publications to get out a full overview of hooking up a capture card to a Nintendo Switch, to an iPad, and using it as kind of a portable monitor for Nintendo Switch. That was the concept we were going for. But when I was writing that story, I was like, you can stream from this. And this was still in the beta days. This was still in there's no real apps for this yet. So I knew it wasn't possible at the moment, but it was coming. And when Camo Studio came out after iPadOS 17 released, it fell into place like, okay, this is going to work. And then again, Federico, because for some reason everything he does just kind of clicks in my brain. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to do that too. He ordered this streaming box, but he ordered it because he wants to use the iPad as a monitor or
right.
for his games. So that's why he bought it. But again, it clicked in my head, streaming, and Camo Studio does have Twitch applications, and it just, okay, I got to get this thing, because the capture card I had before cost maybe $15 and it didn't have a headphone jack. So I could get all the video piped into Camo. I could get my head floating through the studio display webcam. No audio for me. Nothing I could do because there's no audio intent control. And in Camo Studio and other apps like it, and as you learned on a couple of episodes ago, I actually went back and listened to that. The last connected device of the iPad is the controlling audio device. So you couldn't simultaneously connect Camo, the streaming device, and a microphone because it's going to choose one or the other. So you'd either hear me talking and no game audio, or game audio and me just miming away in the corner. Finally, this answered it, and almost. So there was a lot of trial and error getting this set up. So again, through the Thunderbolt dock, all of this actually still working. I didn't actually have to do anything. I just plugged everything up through the streaming device, a USB-A cable to the dock, because it doesn't need USB-C or Thunderbolt speeds to do this. Just one cable into the dock, bam, I'm in business. But I still couldn't hear myself talk. AirPods Max is a digital to analog to digital to analog device. It goes through 2 full conversions on the wire, and an old school analog adapter has no idea what's happening when you plug it in. So I went and got some headphones for my PlayStation. I can now hear myself, but I sound 1,000 feet away because the microphone is being powered by the analog connection. And unless I took off the headphones and just like talked very loudly into the little hole in the side of the headphone, and finally could hear myself through the video. I was like, that's what it is. I need a voice, basically like analog voice modulated microphone, like actual analog microphone. So I went and got a headset from Best Buy because that's what you do, and hooked it up. I can now hear myself at a very low volume. Oh no. Did I just waste my money? Do I have to return this headset? And it finally kind of clicked to me. I need to update the software in this thing. I've never plugged it into a Mac. So I hooked it up to my MacBook. The streaming box.
Gotcha, yeah.
So I hooked it up to my MacBook. Yeah. So again, fun. This is the fun thing about Thunderbolt. Took the one cord out of my iPad, plugged the one cord into my MacBook. Now my desk setup is my Mac, right? One cable. Love it. Didn't have to do anything else. It sees the capture card. I download the software. It's a full little studio. And in the settings is audio controls. So I turned down the levels of the video game, turned up the levels of the microphone, hit save, hit update, everything, plugged it back into the iPad. I now have full audio, just no control, but I can hear myself speak. I can hear the video games in the background. So annoyingly, I needed Mac software to get it done. Again, guys, come on. There should
be a little hardware knob for doing that.
There should be. There should be 2 knobs for gain and input control.
Yep.
B, iPad OS 17 introduced something that, what is it called? It's the thing where you can plug in an accessory and get a driver support.
Yeah, driver kit.
Yeah, so driver kit is in iPad OS 17. Asus, just make the app for iPad. You can do it now. So again, just the frustrations of being an iPad only user. But long story short, it works. I hooked it up to Twitch with my 2 followers, and so all in all, again, to explain, Camo open on the studio display in 4:3. I don't know why, but the app does not extend to the full display. Camo, if you're listening to this, please figure it out. Other apps do this. Third-party apps do this. This is not an Apple limitation.
Yeah, it's not am I right? That's not a resizable window. It's kind of an old school iPad window.
No, well, it's resizable, but all the sizes are 4:3.
Like so the settings app, kind of?
Well, yeah, kind of. So
okay.
So certain, yes, yeah, I think, is settings app not, I can't do it because I'm not.
Yeah, the settings app, it resizes in a very janky way.
Yeah, it's basically a square. And so if anyone who's tried playing games on an external monitor with iPad might have run into this, they're squares as well. Like if you plug Stardew Valley from an iPad into a studio display, it will still be 4:3. Like
one
a
thing
lot of
you
games
can
do,
PS Remote Play is a resizable window on an external
Yes.
monitor, so you can actually play your PS5 on your studio display that way.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at. Some apps actually utilize this. It's there's a system for this and development. I don't know how complicated it is. Maybe the app has to know how to redraw at that scale, and it's going to require a lot of R&D to make sure that the app presents itself properly in 16:9. I don't know, but please just make it happen. Anyway, so I open Camo Studio on the studio display. The primary video is the capture card. So my Nintendo Switch video is getting piped in. Secondary video source, studio display webcam, piping through the Thunderbolt connection of the iPad. So cool. So, and it can zoom in, crop out the background, and it's just my floating head and shoulders. And I can put it wherever I want to in the Camo Studio, drag it into the corner, shrink it down so I'm not too big. Audio intent. This is the fun one. Do you want your iPad, studio display, streaming box as your options? Oh, but the streaming box is grayed out. Can't select it. So here's what you do. Unplug the cable from the iPad, plug it back in. Suddenly, the last thing connected is the streaming box. You can now select it as your audio intent. It even sees it in the selection menu, just grayed out. But anyway, so now everything's set up as it needs to be. Click a recording button so my session can be recorded to photos or files. Click stream to Twitch. Bam, I am now streaming to Twitch. I'm now having a local recording saved if maybe I want to edit it and upload it to YouTube. 2 external video sources. I'm talking through a microphone on my headset. I can hear all of my audio on the headset. Everything's working perfectly. And I still have my iPad Pro on the side. I open Twitch on that iPad Pro, and I can now see my chat. I can see, the reactions of people coming in, yada, yada. And my iPad mini gets a use case here too. I open Twitch on it as well, but to the public feed so I can see my own stream and see that it's coming through correctly. And yeah, so I've basically backed myself into an actually good streaming setup, funny enough, on the iPad, completely run from it alone.
And to play the games, are you looking at the Camo Studio window or the Switch? Are you hand-holding the Switch in some way?
Oh, so when this I didn't actually mention this. It's coming through the Switch dock. So I have a Genki Switch dock Mini that's basically a little outlet, and when you plug into a Switch dock, the Switch screen goes off.
That's right. Yeah.
This actually is lagless. Whatever, millisecond. Someone will tell me it's a 1.4 millisecond lag or something. It's imperceptible, but you go through to, I'm viewing it. That's why I really want them to make it full screen support on Camo so I can use the full 16:9 display to play my Nintendo Switch. But yes, I am viewing the studio display to play the game. The iPad mini stream is actually about 8 to 10 seconds behind, so I can glance down every now and then, see what I was doing a second ago, but see it coming in at full, 30 frames, and it's like, great, everything's working as it should be. Like, it's perfect. I'm excited about it. I'm not a streamer. Look, I have 2 followers. Like, I don't know that I'm actually going to really do anything with this. I just wanted to see that it was possible, and I've been thinking of plans of how can I utilize this, because I spent the money, I took the time. I don't know. Maybe I just might start streaming for fun. If people want to follow me, I'm Hilly Tech everywhere. Go Twitch, you'll just / Hilly Tech, it's fine. Mastodon, same thing. I'm on techhub.social. But like, Hilly Tech everywhere, and I'm going to post on Mastodon mostly when I'm streaming. But if anyone wants to come check it out, give me some encouragement in the chat. I would very much appreciate it. But I don't know. Maybe I'll play some games. I kind of have a concept if anyone would be interested in this, just to pitch it on the show. Maybe I might go every Friday, because I work actually, funny enough, a Monday through Thursday schedule, because somehow I figured that out. Fridays, I'm thinking I might go and play the Apple Arcade Game of the Week on the stream and discuss it, like through the iPad and everything. So just running some concepts through my head, but I am by no means a streamer.
Yeah, I mean, you could even use that setup to hook up your iPhone to Camo and stream your iPhone doing something if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that, yeah.
Or I could hook up, a compatible DSLR and record myself setting up shortcuts on an iPad on my
Totally.
desk, right?
Yeah.
Like there's 1,000 ways to utilize this. I just need to figure it out.
Yeah, you should do
more
like
or
a
less.
Jackbox party day where people are playing along in some way.
Yeah. Like there's ways to do this, and it can be a lot of fun. But again, like I'm so busy as it is. Do I really need 15 more things to do? This is
Right.
definitely a hobbyist thing. Maybe my boss.
You have a PS5? You mentioned.
I have a PlayStation 5.
Is
I
it-
haven't used it to stream.
Okay, I'd imagine it's in a different room. It's not on your desk.
Yes, it's in the living room,
Okay.
but luckily it's pretty simple to move because unlike the PS4 Pro, the PS5 has the universal AC whatever 8-ball like AC outlet. So I'm going to probably set up a quick disconnect here at the desk of an HDMI and power and just move it in here if I want to stream from it.
I mean, you could always just use the PS Remote Play app to stream that, I guess. That might not be great.
That's introducing
For
way
the
too many
lag,
variables.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it takes 2 seconds, unplug 2 cables, plug 2 in. I can do that. Like
Right.
that's fine. Now what I won't stream probably is PSVR
No.
with me walking around with a headset on.
I mean,
so.
that would be entertaining. There are streamers that do that. I'm not sure how well the iPad would. I guess it would handle it fine.
It would handle it because it's still an HDMI connection.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about me punching my monitor, so
Yeah, that's something you need to.
I'd have to put up a piece of plexiglass or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting because again, we didn't just even a year ago, 6 months ago, this was impossible, and now you can introduce this concept to a whole new group. Like a lot of kids say, like have iPads. You know, the younger generation. I have a nephew who would be interested in streaming who has an iPad, and it's like, man, all you need now is a USB compatible hub that's like $20 and a microphone and you can get on to Camo Studio and plug in your Switch and just go.
Yeah, and I think my hookup for my Switch, it was less than $50 for the capture card thing and the dock for my iPad and all that.
There's actually even cheaper. So nowadays the mini docks are $20.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I bought
and
this cable thing. It's just a cable that plugs in from my Switch to the iPad.
Yeah, this thing's kind of more of a boxy dongle that has an HDMI port in it and a USB out. And it's $20. The capture card that does 1080p, which is all the switches anyway, $20. Like you could have a fully fledged streaming system for a 10.9-inch iPad for less than $50. And like that's exciting to me. That's really cool to me. That again, this is just another barrier drop for the iPad as a computer community.
Yeah, I really wish the Switch, the next Switch, would be able to use the dock without AC power in some way. That is the most annoying part of getting it set up.
So this is a fun thing. So I actually figured out if you get one of these Switch mini docks that I was talking about, they're cheap but they work.
Yeah.
The power out option is USB-C. So just plug it into a battery and now it's fully portable.
That's awesome.
You don't need an AC outlet.
Yeah, that's great.
Because Federico Vitici was going through this. He bought a AC battery, a portable battery like you charge your iPhone with. So it's not huge, but it had an AC outlet on it in order for him to run his Nintendo Switch dock. And it's just like, I messaged him and was like, dude, no, like go get this thing. All you need is a USB battery. And, but yeah, it works. It's totally doable. You could set up a portable rig to make your iPad an external monitor for very cheap, or create a streaming setup for very cheap. It's all actually getting very easy these days.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I've played around with using the Switch, with using the iPad just as a monitor for my Switch. And that seemed a bit silly to me because the aspect
It's not
ratio
that much
difference, and I have an OLED Switch. Like it seems like I'd rather just handhold the Switch, and it's a better experience for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using it to get it on my studio display, but again, like no app actually does this yet. In 16:9, I tried the Orion app.
Yeah, that thing's pretty neat, right?
I can't use it.
Oh, because that's just for the iPad screen, basically, right?
I think for some reason it's limited to the iPad, and I messaged the Halide team and I was like, guys, Camo does this. Like, there's got to be a way to make this work through a dock and through to an external monitor, and they're just like, we'll look into it. But
that app is very skeuomorphic. I'm not sure if they're
it's a project that they did, and now they're focused on their video app that they just announced yesterday as we record. So yeah, that's probably not going to happen, but someone will step in and make this work on a 16:9 external display as far as using it that way. But I don't think anyone's going to beat Camo at the utility of having a streaming service. And I'm only scratching the surface of Camo Studio. I haven't even gone in and done like webhooks for different, like, you can do those robot voices that announce this person followed you or this person donated. I haven't done any of that, but Camo supports it. So I love that developers have already started doing a lot of work here, and this feature's weeks old at this point.
Yeah. Game streaming is such a weird thing because I've tried it in the past back when PS4 built it into the console, and I found myself not enjoying games as much at times.
It's hard. I tried playing Mario. So my streaming experience so far has been kind of funny. So I played Mario Wonder, and I discovered very quickly that game is very difficult to stream. Sorry.
Yeah.
That game is very difficult to stream because I see a follower come in and if there's no one there, I'm not going to just talk to myself. Maybe I should because I started realizing, like, if no one's here to hear me and I'm not talking and someone comes in and I'm not talking, then are they going to leave because I'm not? So do I need to just have a constant stream of consciousness going, or if I do see someone come into the thing. So I one time I had like 2 or 3 people in, that was fine, whatever. Again, I don't care. I'm not a professional. I'm just toying around. And I'd start talking to me like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is hooked up through an iPad and stuff. And they're probably just bots because no one responded. But yeah, as soon as I started talking or paying attention to the fact that there were people in the room, I started dying very quickly.
You gotta play as Yoshi,
Yeah, right. But it's just like my consciousness, like now I'm splitting my attention. So yeah, it's like streaming is actually very difficult. So I switched to Pokemon so I can just smash A and and keep moving. But it's an interesting concept and just another thing that I want to experiment with now, just because it's possible that it on iPad. And it's funny that all Apple has to do is add a software feature and introduce an entire new industry to a product. Like, it's just funny to me how that works.
It is pretty cool. I've yet to see, I don't know, like, would Camo be a tool that you could offload VHS tapes to your iPad in a good quality way, or does a different app need to be created for that kind of bespoke purpose?
I don't know. Well, I mean, anything that pipes in the thing and lets you hit the record button should do it fine.
Yeah.
The limitation there, of course, is you're going through you'd have to get an analog, basically the white, yellow, red cable to HDMI to make this work, or you'd have to specifically get a capture card that converts that analog signal and has an input.
Elgato used to sell this thing from the Mac. It was USB to the old school things for this exact thing, but I think it's probably proprietary for the Mac in some way.
There's going to be some limitations there, but I mean, there's better tools for that. And honestly, like, unless it's home video, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. That's the use case, right?
Just go buy Conair for $4 on iTunes.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, but it does have its applications and its uses, and and again, people are so clever, they just figure out new ways to do things with stuff that, like, I just wouldn't even conceptualize myself. But like, and if this streaming thing, if I can get more than 5 people to watch me or whatever, I'm interested in hooking up my analog pocket and playing Pokemon Yellow.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Because you can output HDMI from the analog pocket through the dock. You can buy Nintendo 64 conversion kits to convert them to HDMI. And Analog's actually coming out with a Nintendo 64 model in early next year to play cartridges on. And I have quite the cartridge collection.
Yeah,
so
that's the one console I've been collecting, because it's like, this is a manageable console to get every game for, because there's only like, I don't know.
And it's like $4 for Rugrats in Paris. I'm like, all right, I'll go buy that.
Yeah, there's not that many games on N64. There's like, 200 to 300 games in total. I forget.
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm not one who's buying all of them. I'm just buying the ones I played when I was 9, so I can, have them. But Turok, oh man, look at all this fog. But yeah, like it's great. It's so fun to be nostalgic that way, but it would be fun to stream that. So again, I'm just kind of conceptualizing ways I can implement that. Bring my hobbies into streaming cuz it's easy to do.
Yeah. But it is wild how this one feature that Apple added was like, oh, this means all these other apps could come. Because I've been asking for years for HDI input support, and we got it, basically. I mean, this is...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that brings us to our next kind of topic, I guess, and that's what would we change about the iPad or bring to the iPad, right?
Yeah. I mean, the audio... the audio is the obvious answer for us, I think, at this moment.
Yeah. Audio intense is huge. Clipboard managers. I think Apple needs to open the door to system-wide control systems, like clipboard managers. They're kind of doing it. They're showing signs that they're interested in these kinds of things with like password managers, because you can implement one password across the system anywhere an autofill is available. Just do that with clipboard and make it private and make it accessible. And again, audio tense, make it private, make it accessible, give us a control panel. Control Center already tells you and gives you options to control the audio and video. It's like we're a quarter step away. It doesn't even make sense why it's not even there yet, because it's like they forgot to toggle it. There's like a button they forgot to press before they hit launch. We're so close. Like we're even closer than like say in 2019 when everyone was like, oh, all they got to do is this. It's like, no, like now, my goodness, they've done everything. They just haven't turned on the feature. I would like to just see stuff like that get better. Like apps, like I said, I want like Pixelmator Pro to just come to iPad, please, guys. Just do it. Photomator's good. So anyone listening who's curious, the difference between Photomator and Pixelmator Pro. Pixelmator Pro is a vector editing like photo application where you can drop in shapes and images on top of each other and layer it and then export it.
Okay, Affinity Designer kind of tool set.
Right, but it's also a photo editor with color, saturation, cropping. It's all, so Pixelmator Pro is actually an all-in-one tool, whereas right now I'm using Photomator to do ML super resolution, to double the size of an image, and export it as a PNG, paste it into Affinity Designer in order to do my vector images. It doesn't need to be a two-step system, guys. Just make it like, and Photomator is actually not that many features away from being Pixelmator Pro. I just don't know why they're keeping the distinction or what they're doing here, but I hope there's plans to bring that over, because it's an M1 iPad. Like, it can run it. I'm running it on my M1 MacBook Pro. It's M1 Pro, sure, but like it doesn't need all that juice to run it. So it's just one of those funny ones that's just like, guys, come on, just bring the features over.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as far as missing apps, I've bring it up every now and then as Rapid Weaver. I'd love to see Rapid Weaver come to iPad. That's my one app I very much.
It's like a web development.
What's that?
What's that for?
Web development. It's it's basically iWeb Pro back in the day, and it's still in active development for the Mac.
Nice. Yeah, I want, and this is a different conversation. I want a GameCube emulator. Like.
There is that Dolphin thing. If you
Dolphin does work.
You can you need to like hack the App Store thing. That's the thing. Like when the App Store opens up in Europe, maybe we find a way to get some of these apps on this thing.
It's tricky. I'm a collector, so I'm not afraid to say I'm not stealing, because I own these games and I want to play them in different places. So, get back to me on that. Like,
but the GameCube is such a perfect fit for iPad's. It's 4x3.
Yeah, so like it would be such a good system, and it can upscale to 4K, and Alt Store is fine. I know how to do it. I even have a Mac sitting here. I could just do Alt Store, but
it's
I
just a
haven't.
pain in the butt.
It's a lot, but like it would be just so cool if Nintendo, man, just money, just build an emulator yourself. It's officially
Nintendo
licensed and sell it. Yeah, and sell, or just make Nintendo Online available to stream to iPad. But like stuff like that would just be really cool, because at this point, it's hard for me to think what's missing other than like the two things I mentioned before, because it's the iPad's such a comfortable, perfect device for me. It just fits my workflows. It does what I need it to do. I don't have it. People will say, well, you're going through so many workarounds to get this done. Why not just use a Mac? I don't really even consider them workarounds. This is just how you use the system. You set up shortcuts. You download these extra apps to use them as extensions in your workflow. Like, how is that any different really than going on a Mac and downloading all these different control options and all these different menu bar apps? Like, I don't see it as any different.
My Mac days, I use Quicksilver as an add-on to the Mac system in a similar way that Shortcuts is to what we do.
Yeah, like it's funny to me that people are like, you're going through all these, hoops to use an iPad. I'm like, you have to do all this setup on Mac too. It's just different setup, but it's still, you're still going through every menu and everything and checking the boxes and making sure it all communicates the way you want, exports the way you want, works the way you want. I'm just doing it on an iPad in a different way. And some of it can be a little convoluted, but it's getting less so as time goes on. And I just wonder what Apple's plan is for this platform, because it sounds like 2024 is going to be an exciting time for iPad users.
Yeah, and I guess one of my final questions is, you mentioned you have PSVR 2, I believe.
Yes.
So headsets are not scary to you. Is the price tag of Apple Vision Pro scaring you off, or is that something you're excited to get on day one?
Well, so Apple Vision Pro's in my future. I'm interested in it for multiple reasons. One, I want to be able to talk about it. Like, I'm on a podcast, Apple Insider is kind of a general news tech podcast, and I don't want to be well, John Syracuse has said this, right? I want to have, I want to be able to say my real world experiences and share using this device. And Apple Vision Pro, funny enough, is an extension of iPad Pro, is it not? Like we're evolving the ecosystem of iPad OS, the apps in the App Store, the interaction paradigms to Vision Pro. This is just an evolution of everything built for iPad coming to AR and VR. So I think it's the perfect extension of this system, and I don't know how it fits in with the iPad going forward. I don't think as of right now it would replace an iPad. I would still want portability. I would still want to take my iPad to some hotel or someone else's house and work from it, right? I'm not going to do that on Vision Pro. But Vision Pro would definitely be like an excellent, I'm in my office, I'm going to open up all these windows, and heck, even my iPad Pro sitting here can run a window inside Vision Pro. Like, it's definitely an interesting concept to me. The price makes sense. It's a lot, and it's kind of within my budget. We'll have to see when it comes out. It's just, I can't help but think this is, for me, the first Apple device that is a new paradigm shift, a new operating system, a new interaction thing coming out while I'm working this beat as an Apple reporter. And you listen to like Joanna Stern or John Gruber talk about when the iPhone was announced, because they were reporting at the time, and how they stepped into this world, and now they can say a decade plus later that, yeah, that was truly like world changing. And I know Vision Pro isn't going to be the iPhone world changing, but it's definitely going to be something important. I think I should have a voice and a proper opinion about, an experience about.
For sure. And yeah, as you said, it's kind of like iPad users are the most perfect users of this new platform, because I'd say we're more flexible computer users than the Mac people that are a little stuck in
we're
their
trained
ways.
for it. We're trained for it. All of the workflows that we've built for iPad, the shortcuts, the apps, everything translates directly to Vision Pro. It's not like we have to go to Vision Pro and come up with new workarounds. Everything we've done for iPad is what's going to work on Vision Pro. And the Mac users, I can already hear it now, are going to be the ones saying you can't work from Vision Pro, because they're the ones who are using, these terminal commands and complex clipboard management systems and all this stuff that just isn't on iPad OS, not yet anyway, and saying I can't reproduce my work on Vision Pro because I'm used to all of these complex systems. But anyone who's worked from iPad, who already has everything, their workflows put together for iPad, will have no problem on Vision Pro.
Yeah, and it'll be like, I don't know, like the iPad will become like my laptop, and then Vision Pro is my desktop.
Yeah.
Yeah. More
That's kind of the way I
environment.
see it.
Yeah.
What does that mean though? Like, do I get rid of my studio display and just have like an empty desk to work from? Minority Report style, just sit down and open up all these screens.
The whole desk setup's gonna be interesting. How that'll play out.
Here's a picture of my desk setup, and it's just an empty desk.
It's like you have a pen and paper there. What are you doing over there? Yeah.
It's going to be a thing, and I'm as much as I said it, like I do want it, but budget wise, it's definitely at that line of maybe not, and especially right now since Apple's only going to sell it out of their store initially, I think.
I'll be curious how they do this because I want to order one on day one. I don't know if that means it's going to make me go to a store to fit it, or if I'll be able to do an online thing.
I think at least the first batch is going to be in-store pickup only, because they don't want to send it straight to someone's home and then break it trying to set it up, right?
Yeah.
But this is different from Apple Watch. This is different from iPhone or iPad. It requires a lot of setup. It requires prescription glasses for some people. And Apple even said in their last earnings call, which is another reason why listening to these can sometimes be helpful. They said Vision Pro is an Apple Store experience, and so maybe they'll allow things like Best Buy to do it, because Best Buy has those little Apple alcoves or whatever. So like that's where I want to buy it, because I happen to have like a stupid Best Buy credit card, and it's like I'll just put it on there. Hey, I have 2 years of interest-free payments. Why not?
Yeah, I was always curious. The Apple Card, will they give us 24 months or the standard 12?
So the problem with the Apple Card is, and there's other problems that we don't have time for at Goldman Sachs, but my Apple Card is actually the center pillar of my like financial system. I use it as the same as Cash Card. I pay it off at the end of each month. I never accrue interest. I've actually never had one interest payment on it, thankfully, but I use it for everything. And if I put a Vision Pro on there, I'm not going to have that much. I don't want, I don't want to erase all of my overhead for my same as Cash Card, just so I can have a payment plan on Vision Pro, right?
Yeah.
It's messy, but again, we'll just have to see when we get there. I hope that maybe in the future I can come back on iPad Pros and or Vision Pros and talk about Apple Vision Pro, and get into it.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, I'm so curious about early next year and what this will look like for the rollout, and how incredibly difficult this item will be to actually purchase, probably.
It might actually be hard, like to actually get the first copy or whatever. And are people going to be hawking these on eBay for $20,000?
Yeah, we'll see.
So I have one question for you. I don't know how long you normally have these run.
Yeah, shoot.
So what do you think, what industry does Apple need to disrupt next? What product do they need to release? And I'll give you my example just to help you along the question. We need routers again. I need an Apple mesh network again that incorporates Apple TVs, HomePods, and like a central node, like an airport router that communicates to all these things and just extends and amplifies my Wi-Fi network, all controlled by Apple. HomeKit router support, the whole 9 yards. Apple could really kill it. Like I wish they would get back into the router game. What about you?
I mean, I miss the routers deeply. I have the one HomeKit Linksys router, and it's not great.
Yeah, no. Linksys, everyone's given up on that. I had a Mastodon post about this recently because it kind of jumped into my head. It's like, whatever happened to HomeKit routers? Because I bought a Linksys router that they said they were updating with HomeKit support.
Yeah, it's the MX 4200 or something I have here. I've got,
yep.
And I got one for my desk down here because the mesh networking is actually really amazing to me.
Yeah.
I have my PS5
awesome.
Plugged over Ethernet to it, and it's magical. Like, I can remote play like states away and have a good experience with that wired connection to this wireless router. I don't know how it does that, but
yeah,
it's great.
No, it's the mesh networking is great, and I have two Linksys routers. One of them is the HomeKit compatible one, and one of them is Wi-Fi 6, the step above the base, because the 4200 that does HomeKit is actually kind of their base offering, which is like $200.
Yeah,
and then I have I forget 5000 series Wi-Fi 6 router that they offer that's like $300. it doesn't let you do HomeKit. So I would actually have to replace that one with the 42. So I would have two 4200s, and then I could do HomeKit. But it's not worth it because they're Wi-Fi 6. And I looked into it, and Eero has a statement on their website. They have no intention of implementing HomeKit router support in their future routers. So Linksys says just no, we're not doing it anymore. There's no modern router company actually bothering with HomeKit router support, and I'm just like, is this just going to be dead now? Like, Wi-Fi 7's coming next year. Like, can none of us upgrade who have HomeKit routers to a new system? Like, what happened here? Why is the ball being dropped? But again, Apple, just step in and fix it.
Yeah,
make a new router.
My answer would probably be printers. I've hated every printer we've gotten, and no one seems to make a nice Apple-y printer.
Yeah.
And an Aperture
HP.
should come back. Aperture should be a thing. It should be on iPad as well as the Mac, and let's bring back
a professional Apple photo editor. That's a monthly subscription.
Yeah, that you could pair with a photo printer even,
Yeah, right. No, Aperture, I loved Aperture. I had a MacBook back when that was still a thing, and man, yeah, I agree. I'm happy that we have Darkroom. I actually started using Photomator exclusively instead of, because I was using Darkroom for certain things and Photomator for other things.
Yeah.
And Darkroom has a lot of great filters, but I started just using Photomator mostly. But yeah, there's a lot of great options out there. But something about Aperture just really kind of, it being Apple's thing, just kind of made it nice.
For sure. Yeah, and yeah, Photomator is my favorite. Just the user interface just speaks to me the most. I've tried them all.
Yeah, and their super resolution and their denoise systems are really good. They're very smart. Yeah.
For sure. Well, anything else we haven't covered that'd like to before we wrap it up?
I just want to mourn the loss of Twitter and the it just makes me sad. It makes me feel like the tech community that we used to have there was splintered and fractured. And I also had a pretty active presence on Reddit for the longest time and used Apollo, and they also went their way of the dodo as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I don't. The only Reddit activity I get now is I get their email still. It's like I find a thread and I'll just open it and then close Safari after that, and that's about it.
I just don't have Reddit anymore. So I just kind of had to give up on it. And same thing with Twitter. I have an account there, but it's not active. I might retweet an Apple Insider post because I use it to check for news because that's just what it's there for. Apple Insider has an account. I have to manage it. Like, I can't wait for the day that it just finally burns down, so we never have to use it again. Just counting down to that moment. But I'm on Mastodon, so that's nice, and I'm glad that the tech community found a home there. But I still feel like it's kind of in its growing phase, and I feel like there's still a lot of splinters out there of people trying to do different things or just have given up altogether and stopped using social. So I guess that's my last input of the show before we close out is I've said it before on Apple Insider. Anyone who's listened will have heard me rant on this forever. But Apple, take the next step in creating your own social network. I know, not Ping, but we are one step away. And all I want is kind of a wall system where everyone can follow each other's quote unquote walls, where you can post status updates or photos.
That would be so nice.
And have it just be family and have it like in the iMessage app. And that's it. Just a stream of consciousness from other people that you allow in. No ads, nothing.
Basically
just
the old Facebook wall mechanism.
The whole Facebook wall, because we already have group chats. We already have iMessage. We have the FaceTime systems. You can do shared photo libraries. Every portion of what you would call a social network is available on Apple's ecosystem. They're just kind of disconnected. Connect it in the middle with a streamable private wall interface and call it something silly, and it would be amazing, because that's what everyone says. Like, I'm on Facebook because grandma needs pictures of the niece and nephew, and I'm like, well, fine, whatever, do you? I don't use Facebook. I don't, and that's why I'm not on Threads. I don't think it's just not a good idea. I'm glad they're going federated so I can follow Threads accounts on Mastodon, but there's just not a great central option anymore, and I'm just mourning that. So I just wanted to mention that at the end. And to transition into the closing, I would say guys, yeah, go give me a follow on Mastodon. I'm not huge there or anything. I've never been particularly huge on social, but I'm growing on Mastodon. I'm actually about to surpass the amount of followers I had on Twitter previously, which is nice. So it kind of makes me feel good about the transition. So yeah, give me a follow on there. I'm usually talking Apple tech. I don't get too crazy. And you can see my streaming times there and links to that if I start doing that more often. And Apple Insider, if you go to our webpage, you can see my face and my name as a byline. Click on it, and you'll see a little bio that I've written about myself and every article that I've written. Inside pages do not have my name on them. That's the secret surprise. But if you find yourself on an inside page, just know, hey, that's me too.
That's your handiwork, yes.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and I'm also on the Apple Insider podcast. Go give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. I think it's a fun listen. Me and William Gallagher, he's in the UK. He's got that fun British accent. I think it's a good listen. We usually talk Apple news, so give me a follow there.
Yeah, he loves Ted Lasso, so just
yeah, go ask William Gallagher about his favorite episode of Ted Lasso. And yeah, that's me.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Wes, for your time today. This has been a really fun chat, learning how you use iPad for game streaming and kind of your journey through the years here.
I'm glad you had me on. I hope I wasn't too long-winded. It's always weird talking about myself. I don't get to do it often. I mean, the Apple Insider show is not about me, so we're talking about Apple news. But I'm glad I got to kind of discuss my journey here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd love to have you on Vision Pros, where we get our hands on those.
Right. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Well, that's my discussion with Wes. My thanks again to Wes for his time recording this episode, and my thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. My thanks again to Glisten for sponsoring this episode. Download Glisten for iPad, iPhone, and Apple Watch right now from the App Store. My thanks again to Glisten for supporting the podcast. As a reminder, you can also support the podcast and get early access to both iPad Pros and Vision Pros over patreon.com/iPadPros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, I'll talk to everyone again real soon.